Welcome to Discovering 615, the podcast celebrating the people, places, and stories that make Middle Tennessee amazing. From local business owners and entrepreneurs to musicians, creators, and community leaders across the Nashville and Middle Tennessee area, we're shining a light on the heartbeat of our community. And now here's your host, Rob Thacker, Thack Attack 615.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Discovering 615. I'm your host, Rob Thacker, Thack Attack 615. And I'm joined today by Adam Sinks, owner of Bluegrass Beverage.
Bluegrass Beverages, yes, sir.
And Sinkers in Nashville. Bluegrass Beverages is here in Hendersonville.
That's correct.
And Sinkers is down in...
Sinkers Beverages is in East Nashville.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Technically Inglewood area, but we're over on the east side and up in Hendersonville today.
Well, that's great. Adam, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Hey, always love promoting our local 615 area entrepreneurs, business owners.
Yeah.
So we're glad to have you on here. So tell me how did you, first off, native Nashvilleian, native Middle Tennessean?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Born and raised here in Hendersonville, actually. My family moved to Nashville proper when I was about 14 for school for myself and my sister. But have been in the greater Metro Nashville area my whole life, outside of college in Knoxville and traveling a little bit after college. Nashville has always been home, but grew up out here in Hendersonville, only about 3 or 4 miles from here.
And then what got you into Bluegrass Beverages and Sinkers?
Well, they're a family business, as you know. My grandfather started both the stores back in the day. Bluegrass was founded in 73. And Sinkers came along about 12 years later. It was founded in 85.
Okay.
So I grew up kind of around the stores. I remember as a kid, my grandfather had an office upstairs, and my uncle had an office up there. My Uncle Bill took over from my grandfather in the early to mid 90s. And so, my first job was here at Bluegrass, stocking the shelves and loading the cooler. Just always been a part of the fabric of our family. And then I graduated college, bounced around a little bit. I actually started a business in a completely different industry. I owned a waste hauling and disposal business for about 10 years. We founded that in 2010. We had an exit. We sold it in 2020. And then obviously 2020 was a crazy year for everybody with the pandemic. And so I was on a little bit, I guess you'd call it kind of a sabbatical. And my uncle actually called me the fall of 2020, and he said, "Hey, I'm ready to hang it up and retire. And would you have any interest in taking a look at the business?" Prior to that, to be honest with you, I didn't have a whole lot of interest in the retail aspect of the business. There was something about being kind of tied to one location that just, frankly, didn't really appeal to me. And there were some other factors as well that just didn't really draw me to the business earlier in my career. But then when my uncle called, and I said, "Sure, I'll take a look at it," and I did, and I liked what I saw, and thought there was some opportunity to grow it. And here I am. So he called me. We sat down in the fall of 2020, and then we closed the deal in the summer of 21. So I've been doing this coming up on 5 years.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So what have been some of the highlights? What have been some of the challenges, successes of being in this industry? We talked a little bit about that prior to going on the podcast. But
yeah. Well, one of the highlights that I tell people a lot is I didn't realize coming into it what it would mean to me to be a third generation business owner. We lost my grandfather in 2006. But in some ways, this is very strange to say, but in some ways I feel kind of closer to him today than I did when he was alive. Just kind of sitting in the same seat that he did, and facing a lot of the same challenges, and in terms of just business ownership and entrepreneurship, and in a lot of ways I kind of view myself as more of a steward of the businesses for the next generation that's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
They're all young right now, so TBD on whether they'll have any interest in the business. But it's really cool and unique, I think, to be leading an organization that, Bluegrass was, as I said, was founded in '73. So that's 50 plus years,
Yeah.
and Sinkers has been around for 40 plus years. So that means a lot to me. Another highlight is getting to work with the people that we work with here, both here at Bluegrass and Sinkers in Nashville. We've got a great team, great staff. They make my job a lot easier.
Yeah.
And we've got great leadership at both stores. And so really, really proud and honored to go to work every day with those people. And then thirdly, in terms of a highlight is, it's a fun industry,
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot internally about we get to help people celebrate the meaningful moments in their life.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it.
Whether they're celebrating birthdays or retirements, weddings, any kind of meaningful and significant events in their life, we get to help them celebrate that and make connections with friends and family and kind of build community. And we get to kind of be the facilitators of that. So that's a really cool thing that we get to do. And it's just, it's a fun business. It's a fun industry. We sell products that people generally like and
Yeah,
enjoy,
exactly.
and are in demand. And so, we also talk a lot. Generally speaking, people come in and they're in a pretty good mood. They're coming in and loading up for the weekend or getting ready
Right.
for some kind of celebration. And hopefully, we've made them a little happier on their way out the door after they come in. But just serving our communities and serving the customers that patronize our stores is always a highlight for us.
That's great.
In terms of the challenges, there are some industry challenges that we're facing right now. There's, always economic challenges. Even in good times, there's a certain level of economic challenges. But right now, our industry is facing some, I guess I'd call it just kind of unique shifts in the trends around consumption, alcohol consumption. Generally speaking, society as a whole is getting a lot more health conscious. Younger generations are not socializing and they're not drinking the same way that, our generation and our parents' generations did. Technology has a lot to do with that, and social media and all that. And then, boomers, they're kind of aging out of the population. And so there are a lot of shifting trends in our industry right now. There's a lot of new products coming to market in terms of THC and hemp-based beverages.
Yeah.
That's a whole new category that we got to pay attention to. And then, economically, just recently, the last couple months, the war in Iran has obviously affected everybody in terms of, fuel prices and supply chain constraints. And so there's kind of some macro factors out there, but we are fortunate to be in the greater Nashville area. We're in a growing city, in a growing market. Both Hendersonville and East Nashville are in growth stages right now. People are moving here. And so we're fortunate to be in the two locations geographically where we're located, and just be in Nashville and be able to serve the people in Nashville. So yeah.
Well, coming back to it, you mentioned, and I think we had talked about this a while back with people, the challenge with people getting healthier, but then people are still consuming wine, consuming spirits. What are you seeing in terms of like the type of wines they're buying though now?
Yeah. You certainly see a lot more non-alc products coming to market now. There was always, or not always, but non-alcoholic beers have been on the shelves for a long time, but now you're starting to see alcohol-free spirits and wine particularly to
Okay.
your point. And so that is certainly a market. It's, I wouldn't say those are really strong like growth drivers for us, but
Right.
it's another alternative for those customers and those consumers that are looking to reduce their alcohol intake, but still want, they want the ability to make a cocktail or a mocktail
Mm-hmm.
at home. And then more recently, in the last couple of years, you've really seen this THC and hemp-based beverage category come to market. We started bringing those products in, I want to say mid 23, early 24. We really started to see some of those products come to market. And the regulations have shifted over the last couple of years too. Obviously each those regulations vary state by state. Tennessee, thankfully, has been one of the leaders in the country in terms of regulating those products, and then we've been a part of a lot of discussions with legislatures about how to regulate that market intelligently and responsibly.
Right.
So it's not getting in the hands of kids and it's not being marketed to kids and all these kind of things. But Tennessee, I got to give credit to the legislature. They've done a lot to build a framework for the retailers and a lot of the on-premise businesses to be able to sell these products in a responsible and thoughtful way. And that's really a growth category for us. We're seeing a lot of customers that are transferring to that category from alcohol, and particularly wine. One of the biggest kind of demographics in that hemp category is middle-aged women, that like to have maybe a glass or two of wine at night, but whether it's due to just the sugar content or the alcohol content, they're shifting to a hemp-based beverage that, where they can still kind of get that buzz and take the edge off at the end of the day, so to speak. Yeah. But maybe not necessarily have the after effects of a hangover the next day. Younger generations are attracted to that market as well. And then we're seeing, actually, surprisingly, we're seeing a lot of seniors that are getting into that market as well for several different reasons. They're using the products as a sleep aid or pain management. So, that category in particular, the hemp and THC category is really attracting people from just all over the spectrum demographically. We see young people, we see older people, middle-aged male, female, all different kind of economic classes as well. So that's really been a growth driver for us. We've seen that section of the store really expand over the last couple of years.
Gotcha. And so you've got that group, and then what about those that are still sticking to the wine, sticking to the spirits? What are you guys seeing in terms of where customers are wanting their wine, or how they want their wine, in terms of, are they looking at organic, or are they looking at U.S. wines? Are they looking at what we call the old world wines, which is France and Italy and those type of things?
We see people that, I'm not sure there's one category within the wine segment that is really stronger than the other. That category is so diverse anyways. You've got sparkling wines and champagnes, you've got whites, you've got reds, you've got Italian, Spanish, French, domestic wines, you've got organics, like you said. And there's really a consumer for all of those products. There's not one that's really driving a lot of sales within that category. And I will say for us, our strongest sellers are wine and spirits. You can buy, well, I should say really spirits. We sell, generally speaking, the breakdown, we sell roughly, 60% of our revenue comes from the spirits category. Another 30 comes from wine, and the other 10 is typically beer. Although that hemp category is really growing and kind of eating into the wine and beer. But you think about it, in Tennessee, you can get wine and beer in grocery stores. Yeah, we have a lot more competition in those categories, but you have to come to a liquor store to buy spirits. Okay. And so both of our stores are really the spirits drives most of our revenue.
Gotcha.
And so in terms of that, where we're seeing our customers really attracted within the spirits category is, bourbon's been pretty strong for the last 4 or 5 years. Vodka is always strong. It's kind of a staple of the home bars. It's kind of goes with everything, so they say.
Yeah, exactly.
But like everything, the pandemic changed our industry as well.
Mm-hmm.
People got more adventurous, I would say, in terms of what they were trying. If they were maybe a typical bourbon drinker, they maybe changed to tequila or possibly rum. Tequila is really a category that we've seen grow in the last couple of years, along with mezcal.
Okay.
And then even gin. Gin is, it's not growing like bourbon or tequila, but it's another clear spirit alternative to vodka that has a lot of different flavor profiles within it. And so people are trying a lot of new gins these days. But we both the stores, and I think this would be true of most of the retailers that you talk to. Bourbon and vodka are probably our biggest sellers within the spirits category.
Gotcha.
And tequila. Tequila
yeah.
is really growing.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think you're seeing a lot of, I won't say that bourbon's had its heyday or it's kind of maxed out, but I do think during the pandemic, there were a lot of people, again, that shifted a lot of people's behavior. People were, they're stuck at home. You shut down bars and restaurants and live events, and people are going to drink at home, and they wanted to drink well. They wanted to drink, kind of some higher end stuff, and that really fit with kind of the bourbon category.
Right.
And then again, I won't say that like that market is kind of tapped out or saturated. You saw a lot of new bourbon, like craft distilleries bringing products to market the first couple years of the 2020s. But I do think, some drinkers out there, they kind of got over their bourbon kick. Now you're still going to have your bourbon purists and those traditionalists that they're still going to drink their bourbon, and that's still a strong market. But you're seeing some people transfer to another brown spirit, and tequila checks a lot of those boxes for them as well.
That's interesting.
So you're seeing a lot of new, really good, higher end tequilas come to market as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question. So let's say you've got someone who comes in to Bluegrass Beverages or Sinkers, and then they're kind of like, they're new to the thing. They feel overwhelmed. How do you kind of, in terms of with your staff, get your staff to help the customer who doesn't know really what they want, to help them just make that decision?
Yeah. Well, that's where our staff comes in. And, I mentioned the staff earlier. We both the stores have a really great leadership team, and the staff, top to bottom, is really good. We do spend a lot of time talking about staff training and trying to meet customers where they are. So the first thing is just establishing a rapport and establishing a relationship with those customers, greeting people when they come in the door, ask them if they need help. A lot of times people come in and they know what they want. They know what they're after. And they go and they fill up their cart or their basket, and they just know what they want. But for particularly those customers that you're talking about that really don't know, the first question is, what do you typically like to drink? What's your go-to drink? If it's beer, we take them to the beer category, and you start asking additional questions. It's like, okay, do you like, domestic beers, lagers? Do you like craft beers, IPAs? Where, and try to get a sense of like where their palate is. And the same on wine. Are you typically a white drinker or a red drinker, or do you like bubbles? And so it all starts with the conversation.
Gotcha.
And our staff is really knowledgeable. They've got a lot more product knowledge than I do. They know the products that we sell. We do tastings at both stores. And so they really have a very strong foundation
Gotcha.
in the products that we sell. And so then it's about establishing trust. Hopefully we've done a good job of meeting those customers and satisfying their needs, so to speak, in terms of what they want and what they, if we're providing recommendations to them, hopefully we've done a good job and they like the products that they bought. And then that just builds on that trust, and they'll come back and see us again the next time. If we send them out the door with some wine or spirits or whatever the case may be that they enjoyed at home, and their friends enjoyed at whatever kind of function they were going to, that just establishes that trust, and then we get a feel for kind of what that consumer's palate is and what they like, and we can really start honing in and kind of directing them to more of maybe not more of the same, but other things within that category.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, then let me follow up with this. Do you guys see like Bluegrass Beverages here in Hendersonville, Sinkers is in Nashville? Do you guys find that you have two different customer bases there too of what they're interested in, or is it that they want different things, or are you seeing some similarities as well?
There's always similarities. I mean, both the stores, generally speaking, I mean, we sell the same products. We carry the same products, I should say, not necessarily sell. We carry a lot of the same products. But you're exactly right. That was one of the surprises when I got into the business. I should have mentioned this at the top, is we serve two very different customer bases between the two. In a lot of ways, I mean, the stores are sisters, but in a lot of ways, they couldn't be more different.
Really?
Well, just you think about demographically.
Okay.
Nashville, East Nashville, it's a very diverse demographics of folks that we serve that live there and folks that we serve in East Nashville. In Hendersonville, it's a little bit more homogenous. And so there's just a lot of differences. At Sinkers in Nashville, we sell, it's funny. Obviously, there are things that sell better than others, but everything moves out of that store. We put it on the shelf, and there's generally speaking, there's a customer for that product.
Right.
Out here, it's a little bit more predictable.
Okay.
People going after bourbon and vodka, like I said, and they like the flagship brands. And they like, there's people that'll try new stuff, obviously, but economically, this market here in Hendersonville is a little bit more stable. People, generally speaking, maybe have a little bit more disposable income. Although that's changing. East Nashville is changing. The whole city's changing. And so, but yes, we do serve two very, very different clienteles at the two stores. They're very different.
Well, it sounds like both communities too have really accepted the stores where in the communities they're located, and then obviously you guys have this where we're meeting today, this great
space.
room, this great space for tasting, and that's obviously one way you guys give back to the community. What are some other ways you guys are trying to give back to those communities?
Well, I mean, first of all, I got to give a lot of credit to the guys that came before me, which is my grandfather and my uncle. Both the stores have been in the same location since they were founded.
Oh, wow.
And so we've really benefited from, both the stores have really kind of become staples of their communities. Like I said, Sinkers has been there 40 plus years, and Bluegrass has been in this location 50 plus. My grandfather built this building. So, we've really, like I said, we've really benefited from being in the same location for 40, 50 plus years, and really become kind of a staple in the communities that we serve. In terms of giving back, there are a handful of charitable organizations that we support, and throughout the year, we either make financial donations or product in-kind donations of products to various organizations that may be doing auctions or fundraisers trying to raise some money. And then as a staff, what we've done, we've set aside some of that kind of charitable giving budget to support organizations that our staff is passionate about, and so
That's awesome.
it really gives the staff an opportunity to kind of have some buy-in and say, hey, my kid's school is trying to raise some money for this, or whatever the case may be. We've set aside a portion of that charitable budget to support some of the organizations that our staff is passionate about.
Oh, that's awesome. So it gives your staff buy-in and they feel like they're part of the family, which is so important
That's right.
in businesses nowadays, to feel like you're part of that family, that team.
And our customers as well. I'll add our customers in there too. I mean, if we've got, some of our big loyal customers that spend a bunch of money with us, if they're, passionate about a certain cause, we try to help them out as well. You got to help the people that help you. So,
that's right.
And that's the staff and our customers. And so that's kind of our philosophy. There's, like I said, each store kind of has a handful of organizations that we support every year. And then there's a portion of that budget that's set aside that may change year to year based on staff or customer preferences.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And then obviously we do some things with the chamber out here, some Rotary events. That's for Hendersonville. And then in East Nashville, we've got involved with, some East Nashville organizations and different festivals like Tomato Arts down there, Sumner Fest out here, and some of the organizations that are based in each location.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So any, obviously this room here, redesign, any other big future plans down the road?
Well,
you guys are thinking about? Or?
I'll start with this room. I know the viewers can't really see most of it, but we finished this room. We're in the basement of Bluegrass. We are under the sales floor right now. And we had some excess space down here that, frankly, it just wasn't getting used other than just for excess storage. And we thought it would be a great space for an event space. And so that's what we did. We completed this project in October of last year. We had to knock out a few walls in here and, obviously did some paint and kind of touching up and things like that. But this is roughly, I want to say it's about a 2,000 to 2,500 square foot room.
Nice.
We can fit about 35 to 40 people in here. Again, I know your viewers can't see it, but we've got a bar behind the camera there. And we've done probably about a dozen tastings so far in this space, and that could be wine, spirits, beer. We had a THC tasting back in January or February, I believe. And so it's a great space the first people that hear about these tastings are typically our loyalty program customers. Each store has a loyalty program. Out here it's called Bob, Best of Bluegrass. You can sign up for that loyalty program on our website or here in the store when you come in. And that just signs you up for our marketing emails. And so when we schedule a tasting, we'll send an email out to those loyalty program customers. And so they get kind of first dibs on tickets. You have to purchase a quote unquote ticket. It's usually $20 or $25, something like that, just to hold your seat. But you'll get a gift card in return.
Oh, nice.
To use in the store. So
that's great.
There is typically a purchase requirement to just hold your seat at one of these events, but you'll get it back in the form of a gift card.
Oh, that's great.
The store. So yeah, that's the space. We would love to see anybody at one of our events. They are open to the public. Like I said, you got to kind of, you got to purchase your seat there. But so we're doing that. Sinkers, little plug for Sinkers. Last year was their 40th anniversary in 2025. And so we had a 40th anniversary party down in East Nashville at the Basement East, which is a music venue down there. And it was great. And so we're going to do that again. And this year it's going to be the second annual 40th anniversary Sinkers party.
There you go.
Kind of a mouthful, but we're doing that in August. And so, yeah, that's kind of what's on tap for the rest of the year. And then, we're going to continue to do some things with our loyalty program. Another plug for both of those is we go on barrel picks fairly frequently.
Okay.
We'll go to distilleries, both here in Tennessee and in Kentucky, even Southern Indiana. I was in Southern Indiana last week for a barrel pick. Some of our customers, our loyalty program folks, have the opportunity to go on some of those from time to time.
Fun.
Which is great. It's a great way to involve the customers in picking a single barrel for the store, and those are great. So yeah, just I would say loyalty programs. We're going to continue to do tastings at both the stores. We've got some summer events kind of lined up where we're sponsoring some events both here and down in East Nashville for Sinkers. Then before we know it, it's going to be football season and
Here we go again.
rolling into the holidays and just kind of getting ready for
That's
Q4.
right. That's right.
That's kind of what the rest of the year looks like for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You mentioned barrel picks. Are there any Tennessee wines or whiskeys or anything out there or spirits that you're especially excited about right now that your customers should know about?
That's a tough question. I wish I was a little bit better prepared for that. My staff members could probably answer that a lot better than me. We're not typically in wine country here in Tennessee,
right.
So I wouldn't say there's really any kind of Tennessee wines, but there's a bunch of new Tennessee whiskeys that are on the market and some craft distilleries out there that have come up over the last couple of years. Obviously, there's Jack Daniels and George Dickel and some ones that have been around a long time. A lot of, the biggest thing in bourbon right now, one of the biggest things in bourbon right now is what they call the allocated products that come out of typically the Buffalo Trace Distillery.
Right.
Those are your Wellers, your Blantons, your Pappy Van Winkles, some of those. And we get some of that throughout the year. Most of your viewers, I would imagine, are probably familiar with the allocated products. The distributors, the wholesalers kind of, really the distilleries manage how much of that product actually gets to market.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times that stuff kind of just shows up on the truck and, we can't just go order as much or as little of that as we would like to get. We just get what we get.
Yep.
And once we get it, we'll typically release it to, either our loyalty programs or, we'll do kind of an allocated bourbon drop from time to time, depending on how much we get. And then each store does it a little bit different, or every store out there, I should say. But we'll typically hold back, 10% of that allocation throughout the year, just so we've got some product on hand. If you come and say, hey, my father-in-law is retiring, I need a retirement gift for father-in-law, or so-and-so's getting married, and we've got some product on hand.
Yeah.
For those kind of special
Gotcha.
events or special occasions. So yeah, and then, like I said, we get the opportunity to go pick single barrels throughout the year, and usually we'll try to involve the customer base on as many of those as we can. Sometimes we're limited on how many people we can take, but we try to involve customers in that as well.
That's great.
So I think we've got, I don't know, our staff would, like I said, the management team would know a lot better than me, but I think we're probably going to pick 10 to 15 barrels here for Bluegrass.
Oh, wow.
And probably a similar number down for Sinkers this year too. So that's always kind of a rotating stock as well.
Gotcha.
Those barrel picks.
Well, what advice would you give to some people who are thinking about getting into this business? Any friendly entrepreneurial advice?
In the retail,
into the retail
industry,
spirits business, yes.
That is a good question as well. You got to be ready for all the ups and downs, and part of that is just being, frankly, financially ready. We got to, it's fairly capital intensive.
Mm-hmm.
You got to buy the inventory. You got to buy all the inventory that you're going to put on the shelf. That's going to cost you some money. So You got to be prepared for that. You got to be prepared for the regulatory environment. It's obviously a highly regulated industry, as it should be.
Yeah.
we're not, fighting against that, but you got to be prepared for that. You got to get a license. You got to go through an application process with the Tennessee ABC. That can be a time consuming and just frankly, an energy draining process trying to get your license. And that's, kind of an ongoing basis. And, those regulations can shift from time to time. Spirits and, the alcohol space is pretty stable, but, we've got these new hemp and
Right.
THC based beverages, and that landscape is shifting as we speak, even on the federal level. So you got to be nimble and adaptable to all that. Not just the regulatory environment, but also like the consumer trends that I mentioned before. You got to, really kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what your customers and the consumers want. And, that may force you to kind of shift your purchasing habits. You may have to shift, kind of the layout of your store, which is challenging, moving product from shelf to shelf, or, if you're going to minimize a certain section of your store, say it's wine, if wine sales are declining, you're going to reduce that. Well, you got to backfill something with that, to maximize your shelf space in the store. And all of that requires, number one, the foresight to, be able to monitor those trends and kind of see where the industry's going. But one of the other biggest challenges is, we're open 7 days a week. I got to attribute this to my dad. My dad used a great analogy one time, and he was involved in the businesses early in his career. He said, making any changes at the store, it's like trying to change a tire on a moving car. You can't close the store just to move stuff around. You got to do that while customers are in shopping, and that creates its own set of challenges. And then the other thing is, technology, how to market yourselves. That's always a shifting landscape. Now with AI and, we just put in a new POS system at both the stores within the last 30 to 45 days. And, that's a challenge, but just keeping up with technology and all that kind of stuff is challenging as well. And then you're all, any business, not just our business, but any business, you're going to have labor and staffing challenges that you got to be prepared for. But personally, my philosophy is hire good people and get the hell out of their way. And, let them do what they were hired to do, let them do their job. And so far, we've been pretty successful at that. I think we've hired a really good team, and they keep the place humming. So
that's great. That's great.
Yep.
You mentioned technology. So where can people find and follow you all online?
Yeah. So socials, Instagram and Facebook for both the stores. That's at Bluegrass Beverages and at Sinkers Beverages. Also, I mentioned our loyalty programs and signing up for our marketing emails. You can do that through the website, bluegrassbeverages.com, sinkersbeverages.com. And then outside of that, I've done a couple podcast episodes like this trying to promote the stores. We don't do a whole lot of traditional marketing efforts, to be honest with you. From time to time, we'll run some print ads somewhere, or, we're looking at possibly doing some graffiti ads. So we do a little bit of traditional kind of marketing channels, but not a lot, to be honest with you. But our socials is really where we engage most of our customer base.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Well, Adam, thank you for coming on. And folks, make sure you go check out Bluegrass Beverages here in Hendersonville, or Sinkers in East Nashville. Share this episode with someone you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to wherever you listen or watch. And as always, find your place, find your people. Discovering 615. God bless.